Okay, so Allison Prete,
Hi.
you directed and produced Lavender Lake. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And was it a labor of love? And how did you, come by the topic? Did
Well, we lived right next door to Buddy Scotto,
uh-huh.
first place. And I mean, right next door.
Mhm.
And I started the film with a very young neighbor downstairs to help him get out of trouble. And we would go over there and he would interview Buddy. And then we started doing some research and I became more and more interested in the subject and Buddy's quest. And I mean, it's just interesting that you're showing it now because as I think you might know,
Buddy just passed away.
Passed away last Friday.
Yeah.
And it really is Buddy's film. I mean, it really does kind of follow his dream and hopes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, for the people who don't know yet what Lavender Lake was all about and what Buddy Scotto was all about, can you give a little bit of history of?
Sure. I mean, Lavender Lake is about the Gowanus Canal, which runs through a corridor in Brooklyn between Park Slope and Carroll Gardens. And it was an industrial canal that was built in the mid 19th century to bring barges and goods up through the community. And it was swampland that a man in the 17th century had dug out canals, and then it was industrialized in the 19th century.
Mhm.
And the barging situation and design kind of put an end to the busyness of the canal, and it just sat there festering. It was always polluted almost from the day it opened, but it was also very profitable, so nobody really wanted to clean it up or do anything about getting in the way of industry and capitalism. So when I first moved to this neighborhood, maybe 30 years ago, it was there. There were a couple of heating oil companies still using it for barging, and the concrete company was there, still is. Those were the only users, but on a good day, even up high in Carroll Gardens, the stench just came wafting through, right? You must remember that.
I do remember that. And Buddy Scotto always wanted it to be cleaned up, and the
Venice of Brooklyn and residential. And you know what? Pretty much got that.
Well, we don't have gondolas there
No.
yet, but we do have the Gowanus dredgers.
Yeah, we have canoes.
And did you ever get involved with the dredgers?
No, but I'm going on one of their sunset canoe rides next week. The first time. I mean, Owen's always invited me.
Right.
Yeah, many years, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. But now I'm going.
Okay. So the Gowanus dredgers I've known of because I've been a rower for many years. And the dredgers, when I lived in Red Hook, actually, started a boathouse out of Valentino Pier.
Right, yeah.
And they needed a place to store their kayaks. And I had a garage. So I actually got a little income from the Gowanus dredgers, early 2000s, when I had first moved into the neighborhood. So I have a great love of the Gowanus dredgers. But do you know when they started? They weren't really part of the movie.
No, they started like, I don't know exactly when. I do remember it was afterwards. Yeah, I don't know how far. Pretty soon afterwards, but they weren't. Yeah, they were not part of the movie because they didn't really exist, I think.
Yeah.
So, but more about Buddy. Buddy, as you know, was a funeral director, and it was a business that he had inherited from his parents, who wouldn't let him leave the community, wouldn't let him go do what many Italian Americans did, move to Staten Island or someplace else. And it was during the period when 70s when a lot of people were fleeing the city, and he tried to work and beautify the community and give it resources and be very active. He started out by, he told me, I think I can say this now because he's passed away, but he told me, and it's not in the film, that he started out trying to organize the docks down in Red Hook, and that didn't work out too well. His house got firebombed by the mob.
Oh boy.
He had to leave the neighborhood for a year or two with his wife. Yeah.
Wow.
So then he figured nobody cares about the Gowanus Canal, so it might as well be that should be my passion. And that's how he ended up there, which is really interesting.
Interesting. So on the waterfront, he had a little inspiration for Buddy.
Misguided,
probably. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other family business of the Scottos was the wine and spirits.
That's not the same family.
It's not the same family.
No.
Wow, I did not know.
That's the other Scottos from the other part of it. Like, I think Buddy's Scottos from Bari, and that's Scottos from another part.
And never the twain shall meet.
Yeah. I don't know, something, whatever. But his family did own movie theaters as well. 5 of them, and Cobble Hill Cinemas was one of them.
Oh, okay.
And when I started Big Movies for Little Kids, I invited him with his granddaughter, and they came, and he was like, "Oh, I remember we used to give away things too, like plates, and people get a whole set."
Yeah, no, he was a character.
He was definitely a character, and he was very easy to make fun of, but that was the point. Like, I poke fun at everyone in the film equally.
Right.
But I do, by the end of the film, I think you kind of see that he has heart as well, and passion.
Yeah, well, he's very passionate.
Yeah.
I just happened to think that this was the second film that I wanted to show. The first film I showed was The Wiz, because I belong to this gospel chorus, and one of our members passed away last year, and he was the lead munchkin in The Wiz. Wow. And so I decided that the first one had to be for Teddy. But I thought, my stepson just graduated from the harbor school, in June. But I'm still the treasurer. I can't get out of it. I loved the harbor school since it started in Bushwick, 16 years ago now. And so when I got a chance to, do a little bit more for the harbor school, that was great. So, hopefully we'll get some of the harbor school, students or faculty to be watching. Okay. And, I thought that would be a good, of course, it's also the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which
right.
That wasn't part of the plan. So I might have a rebroadcast, in October, and I'll certainly let you know about that. And that time I would love to do a Q&A.
Yeah, that would be great.
Which
I didn't realize it was for the harbor school, so sure, yeah.
Oh, well, it's not necessarily for the harbor school. I don't know what that is. It's probably, let me just pause this. Yeah. Okay. Take 2. Okay. So where were we? We were talking about the Gowanus Canal and Buddy. And so
his vision has pretty much come to
yeah. So it's interesting. Is it still used by the oil company? Do you know?
Now, beside the furthest depot, which was on the other side of the Union Street Bridge, is gone.
Mm.
The depot down closer to Smith and Ninth, I think they still use. Their main depot is out towards Coney Island.
Yeah, I was like enthralled by the idea of the Chicken Man. Can you talk about the Chicken Man a little bit?
He was a bridge operator who we met when they were like, some of the bridges open and close for the barge traffic, or when the oil tankers would come up. And he was being interviewed by Randy Kennedy at the New York Times, and started talking about how he'd gone to culinary school, and they did this whole article about him. And it turns out that I'm getting it wrong. He went to culinary school because his wife knew that he loved to cook. And so his first passion was food, but he worked as a bridge operator. And he had a book published called The Chicken Man's Recipes, Chicken.
Right.
And he, kind of branded himself the Chicken Man. And then the New York Times came and interviewed him. And it was this big splash on article with his face. And he was just so proud. And that's how I found out about him through the Times. And we went and interviewed him. And he is retired now, of course. But his book was... I have it.
Runs the
bridges
now.
It was the DOT, but I don't know the people, the actual people. But he was a really nice person and agreed to talk to us, gave copies of his book. Really, really fun book. And yeah, he had a lot of stories to tell, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah,
he'd seen a lot.
Well, just after the movie came out, I moved to Red Hook, and so I remember having to wait, for the Hamilton Avenue Bridge a lot, and that was one of those things we would always joke, about, Red Hook being such a tight-knit community, and that Robert Moses was such a double-edged sword because, he cut us off from the rest of the world, and that was terrible, but, we were such a tight-knit community because we were tightly cut off from the rest of the world. So,
very cynical
and I don't know, do you remember Sonny? Did you ever go to Sonny's?
Yes, of course.
It would be such a great time when I would get him and my dad, who was just a couple of years younger, together, because it was this New York nostalgia fest. And, Dad grew up in the Bronx, and of course Sonny grew up in Red Hook, and he would talk about the creekers and I guess it was like the hookers and the creekers, or the pointers and the creekers. I don't think they called. Yeah, no, it was the happy hookers were the fire department.
Yeah, I remember that station. Yeah.
And so, but there was such rich history that Sonny would tell, and
such a good storyteller.
Oh, he was an excellent storyteller. And I met him first because my rowing group was part of this dance performance that was about immigration and moved from, it was with Martha and with Dancing in the Streets.
I remember that. I went to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it ended up at Sonny's, and there was this great performance actress, and she talked about, you gotta call Sonny, you gotta call him really loud, and Sonny, and she got us all to call Sonny, and he came down, and he told some stories, and then his his mother was still alive
Oh, wow.
at the time. She was like 90 something. And so he, gave us all song sheets, and we all serenaded his mother. That was the end.
That's very sweet.
So, and that was, a very Brooklyn, I think that was, Lavender Lake was not just about the canal. Like it was Brooklyn history. I think there was a lot of kind of folklore.
That's kind of the way I like to approach history through character, through like the film that I'm doing now. It's about these women living in this place, but it's also their lives unveil a hidden history of New York that many people don't know about. Right. So like through their choices, through their careers, through where they grew up, and just a lot of different things together. So I think that's the idea of also Lavender Lake was that as well.
And you always sort of do the documentary. That is your specialty.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I've done a bunch of like museum films and things like that. I mean, and worked on other films, but yeah, it's documentary. I like the medium because it allows you to play with story, but also with facts as well.
Right.
Right. I'm not a journalist. I'm definitely not a journalist. I couldn't be.
Yeah. No. I totally understand that. Well, I think I've taken up the time that we had allotted, and I'm so glad you were able to come.
Yeah, thank you.
And
thank you for showing it.
I'm really excited to show it. And did you say that you had a copy that was more
I took the old copy off of Vimeo, and I put a higher resolution copy. Problem is, the film is like in a completely different format from what we have today. So it's higher resolution, but it's not extremely high. But it's good. It'll work. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be able to get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's there's no password. It's open. Yeah.
Okay. And it's just Vimeo still, or
yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'll be able to.
It's under my name, Allison Prete.
Okay.
If you have any trouble looking for it, just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look for it today because you're on the road tomorrow,
We're
right?
going to be upstate. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Normally I would give you a big hug, but that's not the case. Yeah, elbow bump.
Okay.
So no, this is great, and thank you for coming over and for talking.
Yeah. And thank you for lunch.
Well, the least I could do. Well, and maybe one of these days we'll get a film committee for Brooklyn Bridge Park that's cool again.
Yeah, I would go back. I mean, if it were,
like if it wasn't, all so commercial.
Yeah. It's funny working by committee, right? Volunteer too.
Yes, volunteer by committee. Yeah. I'm a Quaker, so I get that.
Yeah, right. I know. It's
not always fun. So we had a good crew.
It was fun. I liked doing it. I remember I did get one film.
Which one? Do you remember?
Ace in the Hole. Do you remember?
Yes. And Valerie was so excited about Ace in the Hole. That was the Kirk Douglas film. Yeah, that was one of the most original films that we got to show. I think. People didn't know it.
Right. Yeah. And it was hard to get rights to it too because but yeah, and it's a very cynical film.
Yes.
Very cynical. But
was it Burt Lancaster that played the? No,
it was just Kirk Douglas. I don't think there was anybody else well known.
No, it wasn't.
She wasn't well known. The father. No, it was just him playing the journalist.
Yeah.
Opportunistic journalist.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a good film. But anyway,
yeah. Okay. Well, that's all she wrote.
Good, great.